What up, Street Beast fam, YouTube fans, and everybody else who stumbled across this channel? Your host, Shinigami, aka Sensei Danny, and I'm here with another episode of Black Belt Thoughts. What are we talking about today? Well, another continuation of the misconception in martial arts topic that I spoke about before. And I'm doing this today because someone made a comment on an Instagram post that was on somebody's Instagram. I think it was. Uh, Let me see. Let me see who it was. I know it was somebody. Somebody kind of big. Let me see. Let me see. It was. Yeah, Ronan Black or Robin Black. Robin Black made a post with where he did a voiceover commentary of my Fight Against Detail, which is still insane to me that is blowing up, continually expanding out into the farther regions of the internet. But someone made a comment about how Muay Thai knee is more intense than or more powerful than a karate knee. Now this is getting into misconceptions that are from outside people who are casuals or outsiders who don't really train. They just watch mostly fights and have these ideas about things. And I just want to tackle that directly by quoting Grandmaster Bruce Lee, who stated that as long as human beings have two arms and two legs, they will be punching, kicking, and throwing the same way until we start growing extra limbs or we go extinct. So, I mean, a knee strike is a knee strike. A knee strike is going to be thrown. That's a universal body mechanic. The way a knee strike works is going to apply across the board, whether it's kung fu, karate, Muay Thai. I mean, there's this misconception because of sport karate tournaments and what the rules are, that you know we don't do elbows or knees in karate or train any kind of clinch work or really anything throw wise or anything else. It's just punches and kicks, and that's not the case. And if you want to see a competition version of karate that does include elbows and knees, Kyokushin is popular across the globe. Full contact combat karate, and they knee each other. They do flying knees. It's out there. It's there. The people just see a lot of times the katas or the sport point sparring aspect of karate, and that is literally the smallest fraction, the sport competition aspect of karate. It is not the practical, ugly, real, raw, street self-defense side of karate. Okay? That includes all kinds of things: knees, elbows, clinch work, hip tosses. Sotogari is pretty universal across karate styles. That was one of Gishin Funakoshi's, the founder of Shotokan. That was one of his 9 essential throws. This stuff is really universal for practicality. Elbows, knees. There's other things too. Eye gouges, things you wouldn't expect. Eye gouges, groin strikes, biting, scratching, pinching. But the biggest thing I'm getting at here is all your basic stuff, your basics: punches, kicks, knees, elbows, joint locks. All of that stuff is going to be found across different arts because the human body works the same way everywhere on this planet, because body mechanics don't change until biology changes, and we all basically have the same biology. So, what it really comes down to is, slight differences in principle, really. I trained a little Muay Thai with a Martial Arts Hall of Famer, Slaven Plolinik. I hope I'm not mispronouncing your last name, brother. But he's got quite the pedigree of martial arts lineages. He does Kali and Eskrima under Donnie Nasanto. Um, he's done MMA. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a Muay Thai, trained like in Thailand, and he was training classical Muay Thai. And I remember one of the things he told me was, from that classic, you see it all the time in movies and video games, Muay Thai stance, to twist the punch around this way. It's the same thing as any other punch. The karate punch, we do hikite and we torque, right? That's the way we train it. Boxers, they torque from the ball of your foot all the way. It's all the same thing. If you notice, the hand is going to rotate. There's a slight difference in the way it's done and the way it's emphasized, but a punch is a punch. A knee is a knee. And knees are really specific because the hips only work one way. That knee is going to come through the line forward and do that impact. I mean, yeah, there's kind of these like little hooking in sort of sideways knees you see from the clinch or stuff in MMA. Excuse me, where they're locked up. And so they're like doing these little side knees to the outside of the leg or whatever. Those aren't as powerful as your straight in knee, but they're there. So you really got to realize that from the outside looking in, what you're going to see and how you're going to perceive things is going to be based on the things that you see, like on the surface, on the face of whatever the sport aspect is, or the competition aspect is, because that's what a lot of people see. Or what they might just happen to walk by, the dojo or the gym window and see the one part of the class where they're doing katas or doing point sparring or some kind of sparring and judge things that way. And that isn't, a good gauge, because there are two sides to martial arts, and it doesn't matter really what art it is. You have the practical self-defense side, and you have the sport aspect. And even if it's a full contact sport like Muay Thai or boxing, there's still rules, there's still limitations to that don't apply on the street in the real world of a self-defense situation. So, what a lot of these outsiders don't understand really just comes down to the fact that what is taught for practicality is not always what is taught for competition, and different styles emphasize different types of competition at different levels of experience and safety. I mean, point sparring is a great way to go compete if you want to test your skills against another person, but you don't want to really get hurt, because the risk of injury is probably the lowest ever, because it's light contact. It's basically combat tag. And while a lot of people hate on karate point sparring, it is actually it's actually very useful. It's a very good training method for speed and precision, because that's really what it comes down to, is speed and precision. You want to get a target area before your opponent hits you, and get your point. So, and a lot of people act like it's not viable in combat, or has no actual application for the self-defense side or the full contact competition side. But guys like Lyoto Machida and Wonder Boy have demonstrated that does translate, because one, you have to know your range. You have to know how to get in and get out without getting hit before you can hit your opponent. You have to aim for specific targets, and it's a small, tiny adjustment from that light little tag within 1 inch of impact. From that light little tag to full force. I'm a prime example of that too. If you watch my Street Beast fight against Detail, hope you're doing well out there, buddy. But if you see my fight against Detail, that's a combination I've done in point sparring a million times. Maybe not an inside leg kick, to test the waters first, because point sparring you don't get a point for leg kicks. But faking low and kicking high and aiming for the head and getting that kick in there quick and fast and precise, that is something that is, from all the experience I have doing light contact point sparring, that's really where that came from. And all I did was put the power on it, open my hips up, rotated them over, and you know, the rest is history. But it's just an example of the fact that, you know, again, a kick is a kick and a punch is a punch, and it really comes down to, you know, yeah, point sparring is what a lot of people see and think it's nonsense. But as an individual, as a fighter, if you do that as part of your base, and you have also, you know, because I have never trained at a school where there isn't bag work and pad work, you know, holding kicking shields and stuff. You know, where someone's holding a shield for you, or the hand mitts or whatever, tie pads, so that you can kick a realistic target area and put the power on it, because you have to learn how to do that, or your kicks and punches and elbows and none of that's ever going to work. In the real world, if you don't learn how to first do it correctly and then do it with power, which is facilitated by doing it with proper form. So, you know, that's the biggest probably misconception about martial arts from the outside looking in, or people who maybe are just getting started in one art, or have only trained one art forever and never been exposed beyond a, you know, cursory glance at another art and its sports form. I mean, you got to remember, American kickboxing, you know, became a thing. You know, came about in like the 80s, and it was, you know, karate kicks with boxing hand combinations, and karate stances and karate footwork. Obviously, things have evolved a lot, not just since the 80s, but in the last, you know, 150, 200 years. Across the board, you know, you have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that started in the early 20th century, which is an offshoot of Judo, which was an offshoot of Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which also spawned Aikido, even though that was never meant to be a practical art. And I do, to clarify myself, mean that Aikido was an offshoot of Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. Karate, you know, has had several stylistic offshoots in the 20th century and even a little before that. But, you know, Shotokan and Goju-Ryu and a couple other things, you know, influenced things like Kyokushin, and then you have, you know, combinations of traditional arts like Kudo, and Kudo competitions are great to watch. It's basically MMA with a gi, right? You know, it's martial arts. The martial arts themselves are not necessarily as different as you think. That a lot of them have roots in Chinese martial arts going way back, which allegedly has roots in you know, martial arts from India, but you know, that's a little harder to verify. But at the end of the day, it isn't so just about the fact that there is a straight line directly to one part of the world as far as where a lot of these martial arts came from. It's just the fact that we all have two arms, we all have two legs, and we're all going to be able to do the same, pretty much the same movements with some variation, but they're always going to be punches, kicks, knees, elbows, throws, and whatever grappling holds, because the body works the way the body works. It's just the way it is. So, you know, and I've dabbled in a few things, boxing. You know, I've trained some boxing for MMA purposes. I've trained some, you know, with Muay Thai guys and against Muay Thai guys for MMA purposes. I picked up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for MMA purposes. And I was lucky enough to train. I've been lucky enough to train in Jiu-Jitsu schools where the instructors do teach judo throws a lot more than, you know, a lot of these other schools that are more focused on strictly the ground aspect and strictly like the IBJJF rule set. You know, it is what it is. There's the practical side, there's the sport side, and there's the art side where katas and things are concerned. You know, other misconceptions that happen a lot are, you know, and actually this is something that's one of the things that peeves me a lot is the reason the 12 to 6 elbow is banned in MMA. You know, that came about because of the Athletic Commission in Nevada seeing breaking demonstrations where someone did a 12 to 6 elbow and broke a bunch of ice. Competition breaking, you know, people breaking bats and bricks and ice and, you know, bending steel bars by kicking them or whatever. It's more a show of understanding of physics and in some cases, like some of the crazier things, like the guy that's all over the internet kicking like street sign poles and denting them all the way in and stuff like that, or like the Muay Thai guys that kick banana trees down, like baby banana trees. You know, it's a show of conditioning, and it's a show of understanding the physics behind putting force into your strikes. But when it comes to things like, you know, stacked ice or whatever, a lot of that is gravity and just momentum more than, you know, impact force. You know, the 12 to 6 elbow is literally no more dangerous than a punch or any other form of elbow or a kick. You know, it's the same thing. It's directional force. Your body weight is, when you're trained, your body weight is always, when you're doing full contact, is always going to be, you know, when you're at least when you're throwing power shots, doesn't matter what the power shot is, it's always going to be 100% behind that shot. So it's always going to be this exponential increase in mass due to velocity and all that stuff, you know, physics. So, you know, the idea that one hit is more dangerous than another hit, it's more about how you hit and where you hit, so much as the type of hit. You know your target. You know, then there's the whole thing with the pine. The boards are probably the only thing that's really close to symbolizing damaging the human body, because those pine wood boards, at least the somewhat thicker ones, are supposed to be the same density as a human rib. So the principle is, if I can break those boards, I can break X amount of ribs. You know, I haven't really done it yet to somebody with a punch or anything. But you know, the other thing is, when I do full contact, I'm wearing gloves. And I remember one time watching a fight science video with Boss Rutan. And they had a pressure sensor on the heavy bag, and he did an MMA glove punch. He did a right hook with an MMA glove, a boxing glove, and barehanded. The pressure difference of impact force between an MMA glove and a boxing glove is only 10 pounds per square inch. And those were registering over 600 pounds. I think one was 648 and one was 658. So somewhere around there. Then bare knuckle, that adds another 100 to 200 pounds of force per square inch when you punch with proper form. So that's another misconception. And that's actually a misconception that exists both inside and outside the martial arts community. You know, that boxing gloves are somehow safer than MMA gloves for dispersing the impact force or whatever. But you know, it's people don't realize a lot of the times that somewhere this got lost in translation. Somewhere down the line, there's more padding and everything got added to these gloves and shin guards and everything else. That the gloves are not to protect your opponent. They really are not. They're not to protect your opponent. They're not to protect your sparring partner. They're to protect you. You protect your hands because your hands are full of little tiny bones, and your shin is a bone, and there's a lot of nerves. And if you hit your shin wrong, you can break it. Someone blocks your shin, it can break your shin. The only pieces of equipment that are really intended to protect you when you're in a sparring match in class or doing maybe amateur boxing or amateur kickboxing is the headgear and the mouth guard and like the groin protector. Those are the only things that are meant to protect you from your opponent. Okay, the gloves they're wearing are not there to protect you. The shin pads they're wearing are not there to protect you. Big, huge misconception in and out of the martial arts community. I had a couple other things that I wanted to talk about in this video, and I have kind of had a long day, and I'm trying to get a second channel started, so I kind of lost track. I do these unscripted. I do these off the top of my head. I have an idea of what topic I want to do for the week, and then I just sit down in front of this camera and I just go. Sometimes I ramble because of it, but you get my point. I'm going to have to start tightening things up and doing scripted stuff for both of my channels, or at least having a loose outline for this channel when I'm not doing reviews and just sitting here doing reactions or thoughts or whatever. Well, maybe not reactions; those need to be on the fly. But when I'm doing black belt thoughts or reviews of certain things, I do need to have it written down. But I think that's about it for today. Hope everybody had a safe and happy Halloween. Again, check out my collaboration with Heart in the Fight on merch on their Teespring store. Link in my description below. My Teespring store, link in the description below. Like, comment, subscribe. YouTube, Instagram, links below. And the link for my new YouTube channel will also be below. Thank you guys for watching. Shout out as usual to my buddy Cougar Jackson. He just had his birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, dude. Daniel and Omar, Yardy, got to check him out, guys, if you haven't yet. Still, Bushido Zed, he's posted some reaction videos that Jens Pulver's done to my fights and several other Street Beast Fighters fights. Also, shout out to one of my new sponsors, Confidence Dojo in Morongo Valley, run by Julio Arana Jr. He, teaches karate, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, and he has a special needs program that is free over there in Morongo Valley. So check him out if you're in that area. It's Confidence Dojo. Got a couple other potential sponsors for future events. Working some things out with a couple of people, how to get their logos from them so I can have them put on my trunks. But yeah, that's it. Shinigami out.